Are you making these Python mistakes? If so, it could cost you a job. Let me show you how to fix them. Most people think they need Python tricks, but the truth is, you need best practices first. I attended a conference today, shout out to Data Camp, it was very good. And one thing that I definitely learned was about storytelling, about uncovering blind spots that people can have. So hopefully this video gives you some methods, some tips that you can apply in code and that is very useful for you that maybe you didn't know. So for example, here we have an actual long function example that processes data. So clean the data in this function just to go fast. We transform the data, do a lower, then we filter, and then we aggregate, and it's always called process data, which it will probably eventually work. But as I was saying, this is doing everything in once. So something that is a better example just breaks into parts all the things that we were doing. In case, for example, if we have another thing that we want to clean, we can just call it clean data in a different one, right? And then we do something about buildings, for example, that we created, and then we just do like that instead of doing all of the ones at the same time. So in this one, we're just refactoring all of the things that we had. And this is a better way to do it. This will be the best practice to do. Each function that does any specific action will be separated into a new function. Now, in the practice, this is a little bit difficult because then you have to plan, trying to think which function should be included, which one should be separated. But as you see here, this is an example, and in general, when you're doing Python, try to separate the functions accordingly. In the end, we just call the ones that we need and then we return instead of doing once all at the same time. Okay, so let's go to the next best practice. So let's put the following scenario. So imagine you're organizing your fridge or wanting to get something from your fridge, and there's 3 containers of the exact same size, color. You cannot distinguish them. And then on top of that, in the front, it just says X, Y, and Z, which in reality, they should say something like milk, eggs, and juice. Which on top of that, they should have the shape of the box of the eggs and the milk and everything, but this works as an example. It will be so confusing, right? In comparison, we do something similar sometimes when we are coding in Python. Instead of putting the right name to the variables, we put some confusing name, and when you review your code 1 month later, even the own creator doesn't really know what it is for, and it just wastes time from you and from other people that can review your code. So on top of that, that's why it's also good comment. But right now, the next best practice is variable names. So for my first very simple example, I have some variables here, and this is just mostly showing the variable names usage, because here mathematically all is perfect, it will run. It is just that we don't really know what A, B, or C is, and either if you're making a project or working for a company, if other people read it, they will not really know what is A, B, or C. So in this case, for example, we can think that A times B could be the area or something. We can use width, height, and then the area, of course, is the multiplication of those, and then you just print the area. This is very straightforward, doesn't need a lot of explanation, but it's more so to show that you need to explain what the numbers are and everything. So I also will give you some variable names that are also not very explanatory, and some other ones that are better. So here I have some examples of variable names. So for example, you can put X, right? X instead of user age. So of course user age is better, or total price is valid, or file path. Even is valid and file path sometimes could be confusing, because if you have many file paths, but this is a little bit better than, for example, data. If you have some type of data, maybe it's shooting data from your soccer analytics, you have to put like shooting, you know, or goalkeeper or something like that. It has to be explanatory. And this one, for example, is a very bad example. And usually this happens when you're tired and you're a little bit over the code and you just want to create a random variable. You don't have any time for imagining a good name, but it's always better to do a good name because in the end it will pay off. Let's go to the next best practice. So, have you ever tried to read a long, messy block of text in code? It's like trying to read a paragraph with no spaces.
Huh?
Here's what happens when you don't format your strings properly. As you see in this one, the text is very long, so for us to be able to read all the text, we have to go all this way. So it's not very ideal. It will go that way, all the way there. I also want to show how it looks on each step when we are printing. So in this one, you will see also that in general the string is printed now in lines as long as the terminal can handle, and it will just go to the next line. So I also want to touch on how to improve readability in the terminal too. So this is the first example. The next example is a little bit better, right? So instead you use parentheses, then you divide each block into the lines that you need, and now it's a lot more readable, right? We don't have to scroll all the way here. It's all here. The only problem with this approach is that when we're trying to print, if you see here, it will be the exact same, like it's still not very good for the terminal. It is a lot better here in the script, but it's still not printing very good. So next example will be a kind of the best of both worlds, where if you have a multi-line text, and you can also just, for example, delete these spaces, but in this case it's very readable, just like this one, but this one is even a bit better. But in this case you have to use these 3 marks, but when you're printing it, now it's going to be actually a little bit different. So if we put which here, just to show you, so whatever we tell it to be, it will print just like that in the terminal as well. So that's actually a little bit better for terminal and readability, because at the end the terminal is going to be how users will see when we run the code. There's even better ways or more options to do it. This is very acceptable, but for example, this one is again with the parentheses and just the normal quotes here with the spaces. Also, this space is kind of important because this space leads to this next line, right, when we're printing here. But in this case, text wrap is something that can help us to just set a width that we need. So in this case, 80 is usually a good width for the terminal to be readable. So when we go to print it, it will just cut it here, right, whatever we need the lines to be. And also, just to show you again, when we put preceding here, still preceding is not going to go there. As you see here, preceding is here. It's more so because it is not about what is in this line, it is about how many characters per line are allowed to be. So preceding is actually in this because it's not part of the 80 length. And the last example that I have is the one that is more manual. In this one, you just use this slash in the end to create a new line. Again, this is manual because then now preceding will be here and the line will only break in here. So you have to kind of try and test to see where is the best place to put the break of lines. So when we run this, you can see here how this line, it will try to continue to be together as much as it can. If the terminal is extensively long, it will just go all the way. But in this case, my terminal just goes until quality and it cuts. So if we open more, for example, it keeps going, right? Qualify for the tournament phase, that keeps going here, and it will create the line that we created manually. So it goes to in the tournament phase. And if you only want one line, for example, you just put here, and in the tournament we'll still create one line. But again, this one is a lot about checking manually to see how it fits. For example, starting is also cutting a little bit. So for me, the best way to approach it will be with this one, because this one really cuts it where we need. So if we only want 80, it's too small, maybe let's put 90. It opens a little bit more. So I think I like this one a lot more. It's very clean, but you do need a little more lines with the text wrap. That will help you.